The warm summer breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine through the open window of Lily's bedroom. She sat at her vanity, carefully applying a coat of mascara to her long lashes. Her reflection stared back at her. A young woman of 22, blessed with natural beauty that turned heads wherever she went. Lily's phone buzzed, and a smile spread across her face as she read the message. It was from Jake, her boyfriend of 6 months. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful," it read. Her heart fluttered, as it always did when she thought of him. Jake was everything she'd ever dreamed of in a man. Tall, muscular, with piercing blue eyes and a jawline that could cut glass. He was the kind of guy that made other girls jealous, and Lily reveled in the fact that he was hers. A soft knock on her door interrupted her daydreaming. "Lily, honey, can we talk?" Her mother's voice was tentative, almost nervous. "Come in, Mom," Lily called, setting down her mascara wand. Sarah Evans entered the room, her face etched with concern. She sat on the edge of Lily's bed, smoothing out non-existent wrinkles in her skirt. "Sweetheart, your father and I have been talking." Lily's stomach tightened. She knew that tone. It was the same one her mother had used when she'd tried to convince Lily to break up with Jake 3 months ago. "We think it might be time for you to consider settling down," Sarah continued, her eyes fixed on her fidgeting hands. "You're not getting any younger, and there are some wonderful young men in the neighborhood who—" "Mom," Lily interrupted, her voice sharp. "We've been over this. I'm with Jake. I love him." Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. "Lily, you know how we feel about Jake. His past. It's not something to be taken lightly. He spent time in jail, for heaven's sake." Lily stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "That was years ago, Mom. He's changed. You don't know him like I do." "I know enough," Sarah replied, her voice rising slightly. "I know that a man with his history isn't someone I want my daughter involved with, let alone marrying." The word marrying hung in the air between them. Lily's heart raced. She and Jake hadn't discussed marriage yet, but the thought sent a thrill through her. "Is that what this is about?" Lily asked, her voice quieter now. "You and Dad want me to get married?" Sarah sighed, her shoulders sagging. "We just want what's best for you, honey. You're so young, so beautiful. There are good men out there, men without Jake's complications." Lily turned back to her mirror, unable to meet her mother's eyes. "I don't want a good man, Mom. I want Jake." A heavy silence filled the room. Sarah stood up slowly, crossing to place a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Just think about it, okay? That's all we're asking." As her mother left the room, closing the door softly behind her, Lily stared at her reflection. The girl in the mirror looked conflicted, torn between the love she felt for Jake and the respect she had for her parents. She picked up her phone, rereading Jake's message. Tonight, she decided. Tonight she'd talk to him about their future, about marriage, about proving to her parents that he was more than his past mistakes. With a deep breath, Lily finished her makeup and stood up. She smoothed down her dress, a pretty floral number that hugged her curves in all the right places. Jake always said she looked like a rose among thorns, beautiful and delicate, but with a strength that could weather any storm. As she grabbed her purse and headed for the door, Lily caught a glimpse of a photograph on her nightstand. It was of her and Michael, the boy next door, taken at her high school graduation. Michael, with his kind eyes and gentle smile, had been her best friend for years. She remembered how he'd looked at her that day, with an expression that hinted at something more than friendship. For a moment, Lily wondered what life might have been like if she'd noticed that look sooner, if she'd given Michael a chance before Jake came into her life. But she quickly shook off the thought. She had Jake now, and that was all that mattered. With one last glance in the mirror, Lily left her room, ready to face whatever the evening might bring. Michael Thompson stood at his bedroom window watching as Lily Evans walked down the street. Her floral dress fluttered in the warm evening breeze, and her long dark hair cascaded down her back. He sighed, his heart aching with a familiar longing. For as long as he could remember, Lily had been the center of his world. They'd grown up side by side, sharing sandbox adventures and teenage secrets. But somewhere along the way, his feelings had deepened into something more than friendship, something he'd never had the courage to express. "Still pining, son?" Michael turned to see his father, James, standing in the doorway. The older man's eyes were filled with understanding and a hint of concern. "I'm not pining, Dad," Michael protested weakly, but they both knew it was a lie. James crossed the room and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You know, your mother and I ran into Sarah and Robert Evans at the grocery store today. They mentioned they're looking for potential suitors for Lily." Michael's heart skipped a beat. Suitors? What is this, the 18th century? His father chuckled. You know how traditional the Evans can be. They're worried about Lily's relationship with that Jake fellow. The mention of Jake's name sent a wave of jealousy through Michael. He'd never understood what Lily saw in the ex-convict. Jake was all muscles and charm, with a dangerous past that seemed to excite Lily. Michael, on the other hand, was, well, safe, dependable. The boy next door. Maybe, James hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Maybe this is your chance, Michael. You've got a good job at the software company. You're kind and responsible. Everything the Evans are looking for in a son-in-law. Michael turned back to the window, but Lily was long gone. It doesn't matter what her parents want, Dad. Lily's with Jake. She loves him. Love can grow, son. Sometimes it just needs a chance. As his father left the room, Michael's mind raced. Could he really consider pursuing Lily now, after all these years? Would it be taking advantage of her parents' concerns? Or was it finally time to fight for what he wanted? He walked over to his desk, picking up a framed photo. It was the same one Lily had on her nightstand, the two of them at high school graduation. Michael remembered that day vividly. How beautiful Lily had looked in her white gown, how he'd wanted to tell her how he felt. But he'd chickened out, convincing himself that preserving their friendship was more important than risking rejection. Now, 5 years later, he was successful in his career as a software engineer. He'd worked hard, climbing the corporate ladder faster than most of his peers. He had a good life, a comfortable apartment, and financial stability. But something was missing. Someone was missing. Michael set the photo down and pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over Lily's name in his contacts. It had been weeks since they'd really talked. Ever since she started dating Jake, their friendship had become strained. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the call button. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Michael? Lily's voice was surprised, but not unhappy. Hey, Lil, he said, his childhood nickname for her slipping out naturally. I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee sometime this week. It's been a while, and I'd love to catch up. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Michael held his breath. That would be nice, Lily finally replied. How about Wednesday afternoon? Relief flooded through him. Wednesday's perfect. The usual place? Sounds good. I'll see you then, Michael. As they said their goodbyes, Michael couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. It wasn't a date, not really, but it was a start. A chance to reconnect, to remind Lily of the bond they shared. He looked out the window once more, in the direction Lily had gone. Somewhere out there, she was with Jake, probably laughing at one of his jokes, or melting under his intense gaze. But on Wednesday, for a little while at least, she would be with Michael. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to rekindle the spark of something more. Wednesday afternoon arrived with a mix of sunshine and scattered clouds, mirroring the conflicting emotions in Lily's heart. As she pushed open the door to Rosewood Cafe, the familiar scent of freshly ground coffee beans enveloped her. Her eyes scanned the cozy interior until they landed on Michael, already seated at their usual corner table. He stood as she approached, his warm smile instantly putting her at ease. Hey, Lil, he greeted, pulling out a chair for her. Hi, Michael, she replied, settling into her seat. It's good to see you. For a moment, an awkward silence hung between them. 5 years of gradually growing apart, condensed into a single breath. Then Michael chuckled softly, breaking the tension. Remember when we used to come here every day after school? He asked, his eyes twinkling with nostalgia. Lily couldn't help but smile. How could I forget? You always ordered that ridiculous triple shot espresso with extra whipped cream. Hey, I needed the caffeine to keep up with your endless chatter, Michael teased. And just like that, it was as if no time had passed at all. As they caught up, Lily found herself relaxing, laughing at Michael's jokes and sharing stories from work. She'd forgotten how easy it was to talk to him, how he always seemed to know exactly what to say to make her feel better. So, Michael said after their second round of coffees arrived, how are things with Jake? The question caught Lily off guard. She hesitated, twirling a strand of hair around her finger, a nervous habit she'd never quite shaken. They're good, she said. But even to her own ears, the words sounded hollow. Michael's brow furrowed with concern. Lily, you know you can talk to me, right? About anything. She met his gaze, seeing nothing but sincerity in his warm brown eyes. And suddenly, the words came tumbling out. It's my parents, she confessed. They're pushing me to settle down, to find someone suitable. They don't approve of Jake, and I don't know what to do. Michael nodded, listening intently. And what do you want? He asked gently. Lily sighed, running a hand through her hair. I love Jake. I do. But sometimes I wonder if love is enough. He has a past, and I know he's trying to change, but you're not sure if he can. Michael finished for her. She nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders at finally voicing her doubts. Michael reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. The gesture was comforting, familiar. Lily, you deserve someone who makes you happy, who supports your dreams and makes you feel safe. Whether that's Jake or someone else, only you can decide. As he spoke, Lily couldn't help but notice how Michael had changed over the years. Gone was the awkward, lanky boy she'd grown up with. In his place sat a confident, successful man. His once unruly hair was now neatly styled, and his shoulders had broadened, filling out his crisp button-down shirt nicely. For a fleeting moment, Lily found herself wondering what life might have been like if she'd seen Michael as more than a friend all those years ago. But she quickly pushed the thought aside. She was with Jake now, and Michael was her best friend. Thanks, Michael, she said softly, squeezing his hand. I've missed this, missed you. A shadow of something. Longing? Regret? Passed over Michael's face, but it was gone so quickly, Lily thought she might have imagined it. I've missed you too, Lil, he replied. Listen, I know things have been complicated, but I want you to know I'm here for you, whatever you need. As they finished their coffee and prepared to leave, Lily felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite untangle. Gratitude for Michael's friendship, confusion about her feelings for Jake, and an underlying current of something new, something she wasn't ready to name. Outside the cafe, they lingered, neither quite ready to say goodbye. We should do this again, Lily said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Michael's face lit up. I'd like that. Maybe dinner next time. Lily hesitated for just a moment before nodding. Dinner sounds great. As she watched Michael walk away, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. And as she turned to head home, she found herself looking forward to their next meeting with an anticipation that both excited and terrified her. The following weekend, Lily found herself standing in front of her full-length mirror, scrutinizing her appearance. Her parents had arranged a dinner with Michael and his family, and despite her protests, she couldn't deny a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. As she applied a final touch of lipstick, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake. Missing you, babe. When can I see you? Lily stared at the message, a familiar guilt creeping in. She hadn't told Jake about her coffee with Michael or tonight's dinner. Somehow, it felt like a betrayal, even though she knew it shouldn't. Soon, she typed back. I'm busy with family stuff this weekend. I'll call you tomorrow. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. Lily took a deep breath, smoothed down her dress, and headed to join her family. The evening progressed pleasantly enough. The Thompsons and the Evans had always gotten along well, and conversation flowed easily. Lily found herself seated next to Michael, acutely aware of his presence throughout the meal. As dessert was being served, Lily's father cleared his throat. So, Michael, he began, his tone suddenly serious, we hear you've been doing very well at your job. Senior software engineer at your age. That's quite an achievement. Michael ducked his head modestly. Thank you, Mr. Evans. I've been fortunate to have some great opportunities. And such a responsible young man. Lily's mother chimed in, beaming. You know, Lily, Michael's the kind of stable, successful person we always hoped you'd end up with. The table fell silent. Lily felt her cheeks burn as all eyes turned to her. She glanced at Michael, seeing a mix of hope and embarrassment on his face. Mom, Lily hissed, mortified. Can we not do this now? But her father pressed on. Lily, dear, your mother and I have been talking. We think it might be good for you and Michael to spend some time together. Perhaps explore the possibility of a relationship. Lily's fork clattered to her plate. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, she muttered, fleeing to the back porch. The cool night air hit her face as she stepped outside, her mind reeling. How dare they? How dare they try to set her up like this, as if she were some prize to be won? She heard the door open behind her and turned to see Michael step out, his face a mask of concern. Lily, I'm so sorry, he began. I had no idea they were going to do that. Lily sighed, her anger deflating slightly. It's not your fault, Michael. It's just, God, it's so frustrating. They act like they know what's best for me, like I can't make my own choices. Dodag. Michael moved closer, his voice soft. And what choices do you want to make, Lily? She looked up at him then. Michael, her childhood friend. Michael, the boy who'd always been there for her. Michael, who any girl would be lucky to have. But he wasn't Jake. Michael, she said gently, you're one of my best friends. You're kind and smart, and any girl would be lucky to have you, but not you, he finished for her, a sad smile on his face. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. I'm sorry. You're wonderful, Michael, truly, but you're not. You're not. I'm not Jake, Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily nodded, unable to meet his eyes. It's not just about looks. Although Jake is, well, it's about how he makes me feel alive, excited, like anything is possible. Michael took a step back, and Lily could see the hurt in his eyes, despite his attempt to hide it. I understand, he said, his voice strained. I hope he makes you happy, Lily. You deserve that. As Michael turned to go back inside, Lily felt a pang of regret. She'd never meant to hurt him, but she knew deep down that she'd made the right choice. Her heart belonged to Jake, for better or worse. Later that night, as Lily lay in bed, she replayed the evening in her mind. The disappointment in her parents' eyes, the pain in Michael's. But then she thought of Jake, his dazzling smile, his strong arms, the way he made her pulse race with just a look. She picked up her phone and dialed his number. Hey, beautiful, Jake's deep voice answered. I was just thinking about you. Lily smiled into the darkness. I love you, she said, the words coming easily. I needed you to know that. As she drifted off to sleep, Lily pushed away the nagging doubt in the back of her mind. She'd made her choice. Now she just had to hope it was the right one. The weeks following the disastrous dinner passed in a blur of tension and arguments. Lily's relationship with her parents had become strained, every conversation somehow circling back to her choice in partner. Jake, sensing her distress, had been a pillar of support, his usual bravado softening into genuine concern. It was on a particularly heated Sunday afternoon that everything came to a head. Lily stood in the living room facing her parents, her fists clenched at her sides. I can't take this anymore, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. Why can't you just accept that I love Jake? Her father's face was stern. Because we want what's best for you, Lily. And a man with his history. His history? Lily interrupted. That's all you ever talk about. People change, Dad. Jake's not the same person he was back then. Her mother stepped forward, reaching out to touch Lily's arm. Sweetheart, we're just worried. You have such a bright future ahead of you. We don't want to see you throw it away on a fling. Lily recoiled as if she'd been slapped. A fling? Is that what you think this is? The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Lily looked from her mother to her father, seeing nothing but disapproval and fear in their eyes. In that moment, she made a decision. I'm leaving, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Her parents exchanged alarmed glances. Leaving? What do you mean? Her father asked. Lily took a deep breath. I'm going to be with Jake. If you can't accept him, then I can't stay here anymore. She turned and ran up to her room, ignoring her parents' calls. With shaking hands, she pulled out a suitcase and began throwing clothes into it, haphazardly. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Once the suitcase was full, Lily grabbed her phone and dialed Jake's number. Babe, what's wrong? Jake's voice was instantly alert, picking up on her distress. Can you come get me? Lily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I want to leave with you tonight. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Packlight will get whatever else you need later. True to his word, Jake's car pulled up outside exactly 10 minutes later. Lily had managed to slip out of the house while her parents were still in the living room, probably trying to figure out how to handle the situation. As she climbed into the passenger seat, Jake reached over and squeezed her hand. You sure about this, Lily? He asked, his blue eyes searching her face. Lily nodded, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Jake grinned, that wild, carefree smile that had first captured Lily's heart. He leaned in, kissing her deeply. Then let's get out of here. As they drove away, Lily watched her childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. Her phone buzzed incessantly, calls and messages from her parents, from Michael, but she ignored them all. Where are we going? She asked, turning to Jake. He shrugged, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Wherever we want, babe. The world's our oyster. They ended up at a small motel just outside of town. It wasn't much, but to Lily it felt like freedom. As they lay in bed that night, Jake's arms wrapped tightly around her. Lily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. Jake pulled her closer. I love you too, Lily, and I promise I'm going to make you happy. We're going to build a life together, just you and me. As Lily drifted off to sleep, she pushed away the small voice in the back of her mind that whispered of doubt. She had made her choice. She was with Jake now, for better or for worse. The first few weeks of Lily and Jake's new life together passed in a whirlwind of passion and excitement. They moved from motel to motel, never staying in one place for too long, living off the money Jake had saved from his recent construction jobs. Lily had turned off her phone after the first night, unable to bear the constant barrage of messages from her parents and Michael. She told herself it was for the best, that a clean break would make it easier for everyone to move on. One balmy evening, they found themselves in a small coastal town, the sound of crashing waves, a constant backdrop to their temporary home. Jake had surprised Lily with a picnic on the beach, complete with a bottle of cheap champagne and a blanket to watch the sunset. As they sat on the sand, Jake's arm around her shoulders, Lily felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. This is perfect, she murmured, leaning into him. Jake kissed the top of her head. You're perfect, he replied. I still can't believe you chose me, Lily, that you gave up everything for us. A twinge of guilt pinched at Lily's heart, but she pushed it away. You're worth it, she said, tilting her face up to kiss him. The kiss deepened, and soon they were tangled together on the blanket, the setting sun painting their skin in hues of gold and red. In moments like these, Lily felt invincible, like their love could conquer anything. As night fell, they made their way back to their motel room, slightly tipsy from the champagne and drunk on each other's company. Jake flopped onto the bed, pulling Lily down with him. Let's get married, he said suddenly, his eyes bright with excitement. Lily propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him in surprise. What? Jake sat up, taking her hands in his. I'm serious, Lil. Let's do it. Tomorrow. There's a little chapel in town. I saw it earlier. We could be husband and wife by this time tomorrow. Lily's head spun, and not just from the champagne. Jake, are you sure? This is so sudden. He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze intense. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you, Lily Evans. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. This was everything she had ever dreamed of. A whirlwind romance, a passionate proposal. And yet a small voice in the back of her mind whispered caution. But as she looked into Jake's eyes, seeing nothing but love and sincerity, Lily made her decision. Yes, she whispered. Yes, let's get married. Jake whooped with joy, pulling her into a crushing embrace. They spent the rest of the night making love and talking about their future, painting pictures of the life they would build together. The next morning, they went to the local thrift store. Jake bought a second-hand suit that was a bit too tight across the shoulders, while Lily found a simple white sundress that would have to do as a wedding gown. As they stood before the justice of the peace in the small chapel, exchanging rings bought from a pawn shop, Lily felt a mix of elation and terror. This was really happening. She was really marrying Jake. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared. You may kiss the bride. Jake swept Lily into his arms, kissing her deeply as the handful of strangers in the chapel applauded politely. That night, as they lay in bed in their motel room, now as husband and wife, Lily stared at the cheap gold band on her finger. It felt strange, foreign. What are you thinking? Jake asked, nuzzling her neck. Lily turned to him, forcing a smile. Just that I can't believe we're actually married. Jake grinned, pulling her closer. Believe it, Mrs. Connor. You're stuck with me now. As Lily drifted off to sleep in her new husband's arms, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was moving too fast. But she loved Jake, she reminded herself. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? 2 months into their marriage, the shine of their whirlwind romance began to dull. The constant moving from town to town, staying in cheap motels, and stretching their dwindling funds was taking its toll. Lily had found a part-time job as a waitress in their current location, while Jake picked up odd jobs in construction when he could. One evening, Lily returned from a particularly grueling shift, her feet aching and her patience worn thin. She entered their small motel room, expecting to find Jake waiting for her as usual. Instead, the room was empty. Frowning, Lily checked her phone. No messages from Jake. She tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. An uneasy feeling settled in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. He was probably just out getting dinner or drinks with some guys from his latest job site. Hours passed, and still no sign of Jake. Lily's unease grew into full-blown worry. It wasn't like him to stay out this late without letting her know. As the clock ticked past midnight, she decided to go looking for him. Lily walked the few blocks to the Rusty Nail, a dive bar Jake had mentioned frequenting with his coworkers. As she approached, she saw his beat-up truck in the parking lot and felt a wave of relief wash over her. He was okay. She pushed open the door of the bar, the scent of stale beer and cigarette smoke assaulting her senses. Her eyes scanned the dimly lit room, finally landing on a familiar figure in the corner. Jake was there, all right, but he wasn't alone. Lily felt her world tilt on its axis as she watched her husband, his arms wrapped around a petite blonde, kissing her with the same passion he usually reserved for Lily. The blonde's hands were tangled in Jake's hair, their bodies pressed close in the shadowy booth. For a moment, Lily couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, as if in a trance, she found herself walking towards them. Jake! Her voice came out as a strangled whisper. Jake broke away from the blonde, his eyes widening in shock as he saw Lily. Lily, this isn't, I can explain! The blonde looked between them, realization dawning on her face. Oh shit, she muttered, quickly sliding out of the booth. I'm so sorry, I had no idea he was married. She hastily grabbed her purse and all but ran out of the bar. Lily stood there, trembling, as Jake scrambled to his feet. Babe, please, it's not what it looks like, he pleaded, reaching for her. Lily jerked away from his touch. Not what it looks like, she hissed, her voice rising. It looks like you were kissing another woman. Your wife has been worried sick, and you're here cheating on her. Jake's face twisted, his usual charm replaced by something uglier. Oh, come on, Lily. Don't be so naive. Did you really think a guy like me was going to be satisfied with just one woman forever? His words hit Lily like a physical blow. She staggered back, tears welling in her eyes. How could you? She whispered. I gave up everything for you. My family, my friends, my whole life. Jake shrugged, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. And that's on you, babe. I never asked you to do all that. You chose to run away with me, remember? Lily felt as if she were drowning, the noise of the bar fading away as the full weight of Jake's betrayal crashed over her. Without another word, she turned and ran out of the bar, ignoring Jake's calls behind her. She ran until her lungs burned, finally collapsing onto a park bench, sobs racking her body. As she sat there, alone in the night, the reality of her situation hit her full force. She had no home, no job, no money of her own. She'd pushed away everyone who cared about her, all for a man who had just shattered her heart into a million pieces. With shaking hands, Lily pulled out her phone. She stared at the screen for a long moment before finally dialing a number she knew by heart. It rang once, twice, 3 times before a familiar voice answered, groggy with sleep. Hello? Lily took a deep, shuddering breath. Mom, it's me. I need help. As she heard her mother's gasp of surprise, followed by a flood of worried questions, Lily felt a strange mix of shame and relief wash over her. She had a long road ahead, but for the first time in months, she felt like she might be heading in the right direction. The journey back home was the longest of Lily's life. Each mile that passed beneath the bus's wheels felt like a step further into uncertainty. Her mother had immediately offered to wire her money for a ticket home, no questions asked. The relief in her voice had been palpable, even over the phone. As the familiar landscapes of her hometown came into view, Lily's stomach twisted with a mix of anxiety and shame. How could she face her parents after everything? How could she admit that they had been right all along? The bus pulled into the station, and through the grimy window, Lily spotted her parents waiting. Her mother's face was etched with worry, while her father stood stoically beside her, his expression unreadable. Taking a deep breath, Lily gathered her meager belongings and stepped off the bus. For a moment, they all stood frozen, the air heavy with unspoken words. Then, with a choked sob, Lily's mother rushed forward, enveloping her in a tight embrace. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured, stroking Lily's hair. You're home. You're safe now. Lily broke down, weeks of pent-up emotion pouring out as she clung to her mother. I'm so sorry, she cried. I'm so sorry. She felt another pair of arms encircle them both. Her father had joined the embrace. It's okay, Lilypad, he said, using her childhood nickname. We're just glad you're back. The ride home was quiet, filled with tentative questions about her health and if she needed anything. Lily answered in monosyllables, exhaustion seeping into her bones now that she was finally safe. As they pulled into the driveway of her childhood home, Lily felt a surge of emotion. Nothing had changed, and yet everything was different. That night, after a hot shower and a warm meal, Lily sat with her parents in the living room. The time had come for explanations. I know you both must have so many questions, Lily began, her voice small, and you deserve answers. But first, I just need you to know how sorry I am for everything. Her father leaned forward, his eyes soft. Lily, we're not looking for apologies. We just want to understand and to help you move forward. So Lily told them everything. Lily told the whirlwind romance with Jake, the fights with them, the impulsive marriage, and finally, the crushing betrayal. As she spoke, her parents listened without judgment, offering tissues when the tears came and comforting touches when her voice wavered. When she finished, silence fell over the room. Then her mother spoke. Oh, Lily, I wish we could have protected you from this pain. But, her father added gently, sometimes we have to learn these lessons for ourselves. The important thing is that you've come back to us. Lily nodded, wiping away a stray tear. I don't know what to do now, she admitted. I feel so lost. Her parents exchanged a glance before her mother said, We've been talking, and we want you to know that you can stay here as long as you need. Take some time to heal, to figure out your next steps. We're here for you, every step of the way. For the first time in months, Lily felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone. She had a chance to rebuild, to find herself again. As she hugged her parents goodnight and climbed the stairs to her old bedroom, Lily's mind drifted to Michael. Sweet, dependable Michael, whom she had rejected so callously. She wondered if he had heard about her return, if he even cared anymore. Lying in her childhood bed, surrounded by memories of a simpler time, Lily made a silent promise to herself. She would learn from this, grow from it, and maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to make amends with those she had hurt along the way. With that thought, she drifted off into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in months, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Weeks turned into months as Lily slowly rebuilt her life. She found a job at a local bookstore, started therapy to process her experiences, and gradually reconnected with old friends. Her parents' unwavering support provided a foundation for her healing, but Lily knew she had to find her own path forward. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Lily was arranging a new display of romance novels, the bell above the shop door chimed. She looked up and froze. Michael stood there, looking slightly uncertain, but as kind as ever. Hi, Lily, he said softly. Michael, she breathed, her heart racing. It's good to see you. An awkward silence fell between them until Michael cleared his throat. I heard you were back in town. I wanted to see how you were doing. Lily stepped out from behind the counter, twisting her hands nervously. I'm okay. Getting better, I think. Michael, He held up a hand, a gentle smile on his face. You don't have to explain anything, Lily. I'm just glad you're all right. Tears pricked at Lily's eyes. After everything, he was still so understanding. I owe you an apology, she said. The way I treated you, what I said, it wasn't fair. Michael nodded, his eyes softening. I appreciate that. But Lily, you don't owe me anything. We all make choices, and we all have to live with them. What matters is what we do next. His words struck a chord in Lily's heart. Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? She asked hesitantly. As friends, she quickly added. I've missed our talks. A genuine smile spread across Michael's face. I'd like that. Over the next few months, Lily and Michael's friendship slowly rekindled. Their coffee dates became a regular occurrence, filled with laughter, deep conversations, and a growing understanding of each other. Lily found herself looking forward to these meetings more and more. She saw Michael with new eyes now, appreciating his quiet strength, his unwavering support, and yes, even his boyish charm that she had once overlooked. It was on a snowy evening in December, as they walked through the town's festively lit park, that Lily realized something had shifted. Michael was mid-laugh at one of her jokes when she suddenly stopped walking. Lily? He asked, concern creeping into his voice. Is everything okay? She looked up at him, snowflakes catching in his eyelashes, and felt her heart swell. I think, I think I'm falling in love with you, Michael, she whispered. Michael's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with emotion. He gently cupped her face in his gloved hands. Lily Evans, I've been in love with you since we were kids. But are you sure? After everything, Lily placed her hands over his. I've never been more sure of anything. You've been there for me through it all, never pushing, always supporting. You are the one I want to build a future with, Michael. If, if you'll have me. In response, Michael leaned in and kissed her softly. As they stood there in the gently falling snow, Lily felt a sense of peace she had never known before. This wasn't the whirlwind passion she had mistaken for love with Jake. This was deeper, stronger, built on a foundation of friendship, respect, and genuine care. As they walked hand in hand back to Lily's parents' house, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The pain, the mistakes, the growth. It had all led her here, to a love that felt real and lasting. Lily knew there would be challenges ahead. Trust didn't come easily after what she'd been through, and relationships required work. But as she looked at Michael, she felt ready to face whatever came their way together. That night, as Lily lay in bed, she thought about the girl she had been a year ago, so certain she knew what love was, so eager to throw everything away for a fantasy. She had learned hard lessons, but she had also found her way back to herself and to a love that was worth building a life around. With a smile, Lily closed her eyes, looking forward to whatever the future might hold. She had come full circle, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly, completely happy.